Of that is going to clear through as we go towards lunchtime. Elsewhere, like I said, a fine picture for most. Lots of fine sunny weather around, albeit a bit of cloud bubbling up at times, and some high-level cloud may make the sunshine a bit hazy, a bit milky as we go through into the afternoon. Temperatures are going to be a little bit higher than yesterday and feeling a bit warmer too, with more sunshine and lighter winds, highs of around 24-25 Celsius towards the south and just a few degrees lower than this further north. As we go through into this evening, and actually across the south, apart from some thicker cloud perhaps across parts of the southwest, for many it's staying fine. There'll be some late glimmers of sunshine as well for most here. A slightly different story as we head towards the northwest. Winds picking up and a bit more cloud starting to push in across parts of Northern Ireland, and a few outbreaks of rain for the west of Scotland too. And it is going to be turning a little bit cloudier because of a frontal system that's starting to make its way in. This is gradually going to push its way east and southeastwards as we go overnight. So things turning pretty wet across Northern Ireland, much of Scotland, and some rain just about fringing into parts of northwest England and across western Wales as we go through the early hours of tomorrow as well. Towards the southeast, staying dry with some clearer skies. Temperatures here holding up in the mid-teens generally, and similar across northwestern parts, but obviously here is going to be a cloudy, wet start to the day tomorrow. That front continues its progress south and eastwards. It could be a bit heavy at times, particularly across higher ground of Wales and northwest England, and across the southeast really it's going to take until quite late on for the rain to arrive, and by the time it does, that front will have broken up so much it will just be a few spots of rain and a bit of cloud. Behind the front, something a little bit brighter, and for many, temperatures peaking in the high teens or low to mid-20s.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the roads, a collision on the A54 eastbound between junctions 23 in Rogiet and 22 on the Prince of Wales Bridge has caused delays. In Doncaster, a broken down vehicle on the M18 southbound at junction 3 has led to lane closures. In Greater London, a collision on the M4 westbound between junctions 2 and 3 has closed one lane. In Kent, the M20 westbound faces disruptions between junctions 7 and 6 due to a broken down vehicle affecting 2 lanes. And on the trains, ScotRail services are suspended between Inverness and Kyle of Lochalsh and Aberdeen. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
What on earth is going on at our university? So Professor Stephen Greer had worked for the University of Bristol for 36 years when his career was halted after a false accusation of Islamophobia. The issue arose when Greer taught about the Charlie Hebdo attacks during a human rights module, and a student who didn't actually attend the course complained. Well, I'm delighted now to be joined by Stephen Greer himself to explain what happened. Stephen, thank you very much. Tremendous to have you on the show. Can you just explain the circumstances that led up to you being accused of Islamophobia, please?
Well, out of the blue, or almost out of the blue, I received a complaint about a module I'd been teaching on a unit, a human rights unit, entitled Islam, China and the Far East, for nearly 15 years without incident. Which included the increasing critical literature about human rights issues in Islam, China, and the Far East. And my principally, as I said, the principal complaint, it did include a complaint about Charlie Hebdo, but the principal complaint was about the fact that I had referred students to the authoritative academic literature. And the student who complained was the president of BRISOC, the University of Bristol Islamic Society, who was a medical student who had not attended any of the course himself, and he claimed to be acting on behalf of anonymous students. And there were all kinds of other procedural irregularities in the complaint, but the university decided to entertain it anyway. Okay. And I was exonerated after a 5-month inquiry. Then the university said, well, they were publicly announced. They took the module off the syllabus.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning to you. It's 9:30, live across the United Kingdom. Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Good morning. Well, a headache for the Chancellor as Rachel Reeves is warned that she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn to plug a £50 billion black hole.
Migrants can dodge deportation under Labour's one-in, one-out swap deal with France by simply lodging human rights cases, or get this, claiming to be under 18. Didn't take long to unravel, did it? But as Germany sees the number of asylum seeker arrivals halve in 6 months, we're going there to find out where we're going wrong. Earlier, GB News spoke to Shadow Culture Secretary Joe Robertson.
People have become very, very weary of governments of different colours. I accept that we didn't do enough, coming up with these gimmicks and expecting to hoodwink people.
Prince Harry hits back as he faces criticism after a bitter dispute with a charity he co-founded went public. A source tells GB News he's devastated.
But the war rages on this morning, with both sides continuing to blame each other. Meanwhile, Prince Harry turns on the referee. More details shortly.
And what's been dubbed the culinary crossover of the century, not by me I might add, KFC is teaming up with Greggs, yuck, to launch a sausage roll drenched in gravy. One of our guests, it's not Miriam or I can tell you, will be trying it live on air.
In the lineup of great breakfast foods, Andrew, I'm not sure a sausage roll dipped in gravy really floats my boat, but I'm sure it will sell because Greggs seems to have this knack of choosing winners, don't they?
You and I know that Greggs Bakery in Westminster Tube Station, frequented by many MPs, ministers and lords, and they like those sausage rolls.
Well, also you can get a sandwich there for £3.50 rather than £9 anywhere else. So, you know, I think Greggs is an amazing business, isn't it, really? Doing very well.
Exactly. Now we know what you think. Send your views and post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first of all, your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Miriam, thank you very much and good morning. The top stories: illegal migrants crossing the Channel may be able to use a human rights loophole to avoid deportation. But Dame Angela Eagle has rejected opposition's suggestions that that's the case. No evidence of bullying in the Prince Harry Centre Barley storm as the charity watchdog slams the Duke of Sussex's over the governance failings of that charity. Rachel Reeves has been warned she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn to plug a £50 billion black hole. Former US President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary Clinton have been subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee in connection with the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation. Artificial intelligence tools will be rolled out to all police forces in England and Wales to tackle grooming gangs. And those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Terrible headlines for the Chancellor. Terrible, but much worse headlines for the country because it's talking about a genuine black hole in the nation's finances of up to £50 billion, with a major economic institute, Miriam, saying it could be up to a 5p in the pound rise in income tax.
That's right, on basic and higher rate.
Yeah, so that completely screws the economy and everybody watching and listening.
I mean, the terrible situation is people can't afford to pay any more taxes. We're taxed more than we've ever had before. It's just not possible. But on the other hand, Labour MPs aren't going to vote for any cuts.
No.
So I genuinely feel sorry for the Chancellor. She is in a completely impossible position.
I don't feel sorry for her at all. I feel sorry for the country that she's destroying.
Yes, that's also true.
And the businesses that she's destroying, and small businesses that are already reeling from the impact of the national insurance rise, which they tried to say wasn't a rise on working people.
Yeah.
People who run small companies are working people.
Yeah.
People who drive small vans are working people.
Absolutely.
What are they thinking? And she told us specifically last time when we had the budget, I'm not coming back for any more rises.
Of course, she hasn't said that she's going to raise income tax. This is just what she's being advised to do.
Yeah.
But I do think the black hole's real.
But if she borrows even more, the cost of servicing the debt will be even higher, and that will break her so-called fiscal rules about living within our means.
Yeah. You just look at the amount of debt interest we're paying every year. It's well over £100 billion. That money is literally being thrown away, but we've got no choice but to pay it. It's a really, really difficult situation. We've got to make massive cuts, but Labour aren't going to vote for it, so...
Yeah, well, it's the National Institute of Economic and Social Research that said the Chancellor is now on course to miss all her targets and her spending promises. So let's talk to GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster. Catherine, this is going to be a long and painful build-up to the budget in November, because if this institute is right, that's a massive amount of money she's got to find.
Yeah, the equivalent, as you said, of 5p in the pound on income tax. And it feels like a very, very long time since the budget last year and all the blame that was attached to the Conservatives of this £22 billion black hole that they came in and found that they didn't know about, and the £40 billion of tax rises that Rachel Reeves made in that budget. She said that it was a once-in-a-generation event, that she wouldn't need to do anything like that again, that was sort of the bad news out of the way. And going back even further, before the general election, Labour said there would be very limited need for tax rises, VAT on public schools, on nom-doms, but very, very limited, because all the money was going to come from growth. Of course, since the financial crisis, we've had a pretty much flatlining economy, very little growth, and that is the cause of all our problems. But now it's incredibly difficult, because she's going to have to either cut spending massively, and budgets were already very, very squeezed in the latter part of this Parliament, break her fiscal rules, or put up taxes, because there is 40 billion missing effectively, and if she wants to get that 10 billion headroom back. So, look, I think it's inevitable, and has been, to be honest, for ages, that taxes are going to go up. They promised no taxes on working people, but as you've said, VAT on employers, it's very, very difficult. I think it is exceedingly likely that the tax thresholds will continue to be frozen. So the amount that you earn before you go into a higher tax bracket, it's been frozen till 2028, I think, was frozen by the Conservatives. Labour used to criticise it. I think that will be extended. That is, let's face it, a tax rise. It is a stealth tax, but it is a tax rise. There are plenty of voices in Labour, of course, also calling for wealth taxes. But in countries where wealth taxes have been tried, they've tended not to work, because the very wealthy people can pretty much always get around it, and they can take their money elsewhere, and if necessary, they can leave the country.
Well, I was talking to Ed Balls, who was Gordon Brown's right-hand man for a very long time. He was an economic minister. I made the point to him, Labour had 13 years in which to bring in a wealth tax, and they didn't, because they looked at them, they don't work. They don't work, and very wealthy people just don't tend to have £20 million lying around in a bank account. It just doesn't work like that. Their money is very cleverly invested out of harm's way from the clutches of the taxman. And what are they going to do? An asset tax? A property tax? I mean, they've even got themselves into a fuss now over flogging off allotments. Astonishing.
They have, and really, I think, for a long time they came in and they blamed everything on the Conservatives, terrible inheritance, etc., etc. That will get you so far, but look, they've been in power a year now. That budget was to deal with the black hole that they say they found. This now This is on them. And the risk is that you get into this sort of doom loop that because you don't have the growth, you don't have the productivity, you don't have the money coming in, you have to raise taxes. That further depresses growth and makes the whole situation worse. So it's a pretty awful outlook. Who would be Rachel Reeves at the moment? Mel Stride, the Shadow Chancellor, talks of their economic mismanagement. It's been a pretty dreadful first year for Labour, and at the moment, I don't see it changing anytime very soon.
Catherine, thank you, and more from you later. Well, joining us now is writer and columnist Ross Clark. Ross, good morning. Welcome to the programme. Ross, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Here we are. We've got Ross. Brilliant. Good morning, Ross. Nice to see you.
Good morning. Hi.
Ross, terrible headlines for the Chancellor. Is the black hole real? And if so, what is your advice to the Chancellor? How should she best deal with the situation?
Yeah, well, when you've got when we talk about this black hole, what we mean is the difference between forecasted tax revenues and into the future. So it's all a bit open to conjecture. Of course, the economic forecasts are always wrong anyway. But what the National Institute for Economic and Social Research is saying is that the economic forecasts have changed. The government's not bringing enough revenue. As much revenue as it would like to, and the economy is stalling. And we're on this dreadful situation now where the higher taxes go, the bigger the fiscal black hole seems to become. And because, as you've already said, that, raising taxes depresses economic growth. We've had this massive hit on businesses in the form of the national insurance contributions, which has destroyed jobs. We've seen a decline in employment in Labour's first year. That not only brings in less tax revenue, of course, it also increases benefits payments, because if people are unemployed, whereas before they'd had a job, there's a sort of double whammy there. At the same time, migration certainly isn't helping to balance the books, and we had some of that yesterday with the David Miles of the Office of Budgetary Responsibility. He produced his think piece saying that it's a fallacy to think that mass migration is helping to boost the economy or solve our fiscal problems, because migrants consume resources, consume public services, and the OBR produced figures last year which showed that for a migrant on low income, they could end up costing the country a net sort of £400,000 because of the eventual benefit payments, pension payments, and so on are far higher than the taxes they pay in their lifetime. And what we are, to put our current situation in simple terms, we are on the. It appears to me, and to a lot of people, that we are on the downward slope of the Laffer curve. Now, the Laffer curve, for anyone who doesn't heard that expression, it's a graph which shows that tax rates are very low, you don't raise very much revenue. If you raise tax rates to impossible highs, then you don't raise any revenue either, because everyone leaves the country or economic activity ceases. But in the middle, there is an optimum level of taxation, if you like, which raises the greatest amount of revenue. And, all the evidence that we see at the moment is we are beyond that. And, the more taxes raised, the more taxes are increased, the less revenue we'll get. And, the more hopeless the fiscal position becomes.
Ross, I think people are becoming increasingly aware how dire the situation is, and many of the structural problems that we've got that have developed over decades, really, changes in demography, ageing population, lack of productivity, investment, many different things, mass immigration, of course. But one thing that has changed very, very suddenly is the amount of debt interest that the UK has had to repay. It jumped by, I think, 55 billion between 2022 and 2023. That's placed enormous pressure on the public finances. Can you explain why we've had that massive jump? And is there anything that Rachel Reeves can do about that?
Yeah, well, for a decade, we lived in this fantasy land of sort of near zero interest rates when global bond investors, for reasons I never quite understood, were happy to lend money to governments for virtually zero return. Now, and governments, Britain's not the only offender in this respect, looked at that and they said, oh, wow, we can borrow more money now for paying virtually zero interest. And they worked on the assumption that that zero interest rate era was going to last forever. But of course it didn't. For the past sort of 4 years, it's turned around very much. So, we're not going back to near zero interest rates anytime soon, I don't think. So the interest bill is becoming a severe burden on the public purse. And, as already said, we're spending now over £100 billion servicing our debts on debt interest. And, that's more than we spend on education or defence. We could have another 2/3 of an NHS if we weren't paying that debt interest. Gosh. It's on that scale.
Yeah. All right, Ross, that's Ross Clark, and he puts that in real layman's terms, doesn't he? If you weren't paying all that interest on debt, we could have a 2/3 NHS bigger. That's shocking, isn't it? And I just see the FT's reporting today, since the budget, 3,800 company directors have left Britain.
Gosh.
They're voting with their feet. Thanks, Ross. That's Ross Clark. Now, still ahead, guess what? Surprise, surprise. Migrants can dodge deportation under Labour's one-in, one-out swap deal with France by simply lodging human rights cases or claiming to be under 18. Who'd have thought it?
I know, less than 24 hours. But first, if you want to go the other way, go back to Europe, get some holiday sun. Here's the forecast for some of our top travel destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's some hot air across parts of northern Africa at the moment, and as that's feeding its way northwards, it's going to push into Spain and Portugal. And here we're going to see temperatures rising through the next few days, could get into the low 40s at times. Otherwise, there will be a spell of showery rain affecting Gibraltar perhaps on Thursday, and a few showers across Italy and also into Greece and Turkey, but slightly fewer than I'm expecting through today. And the outlook for many is looking sunny and fairly hot.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Now, the National Memorial to Queen Elizabeth II will include a new bridge in St James's Park, designed by Norman Foster.
Yes, the translucent bridge will be inspired by the tiara the Queen wore on her wedding day.
But let's get more now from St James's Park with our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Cameron, what's the memorial going to be like?
Good afternoon, Tom and Emily. Yes, the wait is finally over. We have the final design from the renowned architect Lord Foster, who famously once criticised the King for his views on architecture. But of course, today it's all about honouring Queen Elizabeth II and her legacy. On that theme, at Marlborough Gate, which is the big gate you see behind me, which overlooks the Mall, that's going to be renamed Queen Elizabeth II Place. And there is, according to the artist impression, going to be a big statue of Queen Elizabeth II riding a horse overlooking the Mall. Of course, incredibly poignant because she had a deep love of all things equine. Incredibly poignant, of course, as well, significant love between Prince Philip and the late Queen. It's going to apparently, according to the architect, or hinted by the architect, light up at night as well, which is meant to symbolise all the diamonds that were part of that tiara. And the Queen famously also gave it to her granddaughter, loaned it to her granddaughter, Princess Beatrice, for her wedding in 2020. And then we come to the final part of St James's Park's Queen Elizabeth II's memorial, and that is going to be right here at the other end of the park, overlooking Birdcage Walk, going to be renamed Prince Philip Gate, because a new statue of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip is going to be erected at the other side of St James's Park. It's meant to be them, according to the artist's impressions, in their younger years.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 10 and Prince Harry is facing criticism from the charity watchdog this morning after a bitter dispute at a charity he co-founded was allowed to spill into the public eye.
This is the charity he set up in Lesotho in memory of his mother. Spokesman Harry says the findings by the Charity Commission clear him, claims the real damage is going to be felt by the children, by the charities he supports. Would you support the charity more? Cameron Walker's with us. This is his very important charity. It was probably one of the most important things he did in the memory of his mother.
Yeah, a source close to him telling me he's devastated and that he sees it as basically kind of hijacking the good work that he's done. A hostile takeover is the quotes over his life's work. This is clearly a bitter battle. There's been mud thrown.
It's called Centre Barley.
It's called Centre Barley, co-founded by him in 2006 to help children in Lesotho and Botswana living with HIV and AIDS. Been going for 19 years. But of course, this bitter row erupted earlier this year following some kind of internal power struggle going on. And because it spilled into the public domain, the Charity Commission, the UK charity watchdog, launched an investigation. Their findings were released this morning. I think the big headline really is that Prince Harry has been heavily criticised alongside the chairperson, Dr. Sophie Chanduka, and the other former trustees for allowing this whole row to spill into the public domain. They say it's not only damaged the integrity of the charity, but it's also damaged the integrity of the entire UK charity sector. Now, a source close to Harry saying, well, he wasn't the one doing TV interviews, but I think we need to go back to the beginning here. It was initially reported in the Times that Prince Harry has stepped back as a patron of the charity due to this internal fallout with the charity's chair over the way the charity was going to be funded. Then Prince Harry released a statement via his spokesperson alongside Prince Siso of Lesotho, who is the other co-founder of the charity, basically pouring mud on the chairperson, and that is the point in which she felt she wanted to defend herself via an interview with Sky News and the Financial Times as well. And then there's a lot of briefings and counter-briefings, and then this row just turned into this mess. The Charity Commission also found that there's serious governance failures within the charity, confusion over whose powers are which, so I think it's basically a bit of a power struggle that's going on here. But what has kind of happened now is that a source close to Harry is alleging that Sophie Chanduka, the chair, wanted to install herself as this executive chairman, which is a term used in the US quite a lot, which gives you a salary, gives you executive powers of the charity, but that's not in UK law. That's only in US law. But what I understand is that Dr. Sophie is not only the second biggest donor privately to the charity alongside her brother, but she also turned down a salary from Prince Harry, who initially offered it to her before the row, due to before all of this.
But Cameron, for Harry, this is what is left for him now. He'll just have his Invictus Games charity, which is brilliant work he does with servicemen and women who've been damaged, been war and conflict. This is about all he had left of his old life.
Indeed.
Royal.
And he's been widely praised for his charity work. Of course, he's saying Invictus is one part of it. I'm told by his spokesperson he is going to be looking at other ways to support children in Southern Africa. We'll have to wait and see what he means by that.
Well, we must read a right of reply statement from the former trustees of Centre Barley. We're disheartened by the way in which the Charity Commission has chosen to ignore key concerns and irrefutable evidence raised with them regarding the leadership and oversight of Centre Barley's chair.
So he doesn't even accept the report of the Charity Commission?
No, he is criticised the charity.
It sounds just like office politics to me. No one would be interested if Prince Harry wasn't in.
No, but the whole point about the charity was
personalities.
it got its where it did the work it did because of the good name of Prince Harry, which is disappearing rapidly.
be interesting to see what their financial report states at the end of the month.
Well, we've got to go.
Ahead, we're going to be looking at how the Channel migrants are going to use the loophole to get round Labour's new one-in, one-out policy. What a surprise. Like that?
Yep.
That worked.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. This is your latest Met Office weather update for GB News. For many, today is going to be a fine day, the exception just being across the far north of Scotland. Here there will be a front bringing a bit of cloud, a bit of drizzly rain at times as well, though a lot of that is going to clear through as we go towards lunchtime. Elsewhere, like I said, a fine picture for most, lots of fine sunny weather around, albeit a bit of cloud bubbling up at times, and some high-level cloud may make the sunshine a bit hazy, a bit milky as we go through into the afternoon. Temperatures are going to be a little bit higher than yesterday and feeling a bit warmer too, with more sunshine and lighter winds, highs of around 24-25 Celsius towards the south and just a few degrees lower than this further north. As we go through into this evening and actually across the south, apart from some thicker cloud perhaps across parts of the southwest, for many it's staying fine. There'll be some late glimmers of sunshine as well for most here. A slightly different story as we head towards the northwest. Winds picking up and a bit more cloud starting to push in across parts of Northern Ireland, and a few outbreaks of rain for the west of Scotland too, and it is going to be turning a little bit cloudier because of a frontal system that's starting to make its way in. This is gradually going to push its way east and southeastwards as we go overnight, so things turning pretty wet across Northern Ireland, much of Scotland, and some rain just about fringing into parts of northwest England and across western Wales as we go through the early hours of tomorrow as well. Towards the southeast, staying dry with some clearer skies, temperatures here holding up in the mid-teens generally, and similar across northwestern parts, but obviously here is going to be a cloudy, wet start to the day tomorrow. That front continues its progress south and eastwards. It could be a bit heavy at times, particularly across higher ground of Wales and northwest England, and across the southeast really it's going to take until quite late on for the rain to arrive, and by the time it does, that front will have broken up so much it will just be a few spots of rain and a bit of cloud. Behind the front, something a little bit brighter, and for many, temperatures peaking in the high teens or low to mid-20s.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Currently, the M8 westbound at junction 13 is closed, prompting drivers to find alternative routes and face longer travel times. The M4 eastbound between junctions 23 at Rogiet and 22 at Pilning is experiencing delays due to an incident causing congestion. In Northamptonshire, a crash on the A45 westbound has led to lane closures, affecting traffic. In Greater London, one lane is closed on the M4 westbound between junctions 2 and 3 due to another collision. And on the trains, ScotRail has suspended operations between Inverness and Aberdeen. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Let us take on some of your financial stresses and pay your mortgage or rent for the next 12 months. We want to give you a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an unbelievable £20,000. We'll also boost that by a further £5,000, so you really could have some fun in the coming year. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Wednesday, the 6th of August. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So guess what? Migrants can dodge deportation under Labour's much vaunted one-in, one-out swap deal with France by simply lodging a human rights case or claiming to be under 18. But as Germany sees the number of asylum seekers halve in 6 months, we're asking why they're doing it. Why aren't we?
Well, the devil really is in the detail with this deal. Lots of those details are pretty concerning. I'll bring you more details shortly.
And there's a fresh headache for the Chancellor as Rachel Reeves is warned that she will have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn to plug a £50 billion black hole.
And Prince Harry's hit back at criticism from the Charities Commission over his Centre Bali charity. A source tells GB News he's devastated by the report.
And in what's been dubbed the culinary crossover of the century, KFC are teaming up with Greggs to launch a sausage roll drenched in gravy. One of our guests, or maybe Andrew, will be trying it live on air.
No chance. It didn't take long, did it, for the one-in, one-out deal to start to unravel?
Less than 24 hours. It's got to be some sort of record.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same old problem. Individual human rights cases that can be brought by immigration lawyers will scupper the whole thing.
Which is exactly what stopped the Rwanda plane getting off the runway, and it will stop the... And of course, if people claim they're 18...
Yeah.
Do you know 20% of people who crossed the Channel last year claimed they were under 18?
Yeah.
I don't believe the figure, but how can the government prove otherwise? Because they chuck their ID away.
That's right. Other countries use various forms of scientific and biometric testing to assess fairly accurately how old somebody is. But we don't do that for some reason. That would be a very easy reform to make.
Yeah, because we're a stupid soft touch. We want to know what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first of all, here are the news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Illegal migrants crossing the Channel may be able to use a human rights loophole to avoid deportation. But Dame Angela Eagle has rejected opposition suggestions that that is the case. Under terms of the agreement with France, asylum seekers will not qualify for deportation if they lodge a human rights claim or say that they're under 18. This is just one of the potential loopholes which could be exploited and threatens to undermine the government's attempt to, quote, smash the gangs. It says the one-in, one-out deal with France has only just come into effect. Shadow Culture Secretary Joe Robertson spoke to GB News Breakfast.
I think people have become very, very wary of governments of different colours. I accept that we didn't do enough, coming up with these gimmicks and expecting to hoodwink people. One in, one out. I mean, it said if it does what it says on the tin, one in, one out isn't going to reduce the number of migrants in this country, because one in means there'll be one out the other side. So I don't think it's going to work. We don't even have numbers. The government aren't even telling us how many people will be deported under this scheme. So if they can't even give us the numbers, how do we know whether it's successful or not?
Prince Harry's facing criticism from the charity watchdog after a dispute at a charity he co-founded was allowed to spill into the public eye. The Charity Commission has issued a formal action plan for Sentebale, the Duke's charity supporting children and young people in southern Africa. It flagged leadership confusion and poor governance, but found no evidence of bullying or misconduct by Prince Harry, despite claims from the charity's current chair. A spokesperson for Harry says the findings clear him, but claims the real damage will be felt by the children the charity supports. Rachel Reeves has been warned she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn to plug a £50 billion black hole. In a warning, the National Institute of Economic and Social Research said the Chancellor is now on course to miss targets and spending promises as finances plunge deeper into the red. The report has fuelled speculation over how the government may look to boost tax revenues in the autumn, including mounting rumours of a possible wealth tax. Former US President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary Clinton have been subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee in connection with the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation. The committee is seeking information about the deceased financier's history after President Trump decided against releasing more federal files despite widespread backlash and pressure from within his own party. Donald Trump has denied prior knowledge of Epstein's crimes, claiming he ended their relationship a long time ago. Epstein died in a New York jail cell in 2019, awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. US political analyst Eric Ham spoke to GB News.
Well, when we see these House committees, and of course we know how partisan and of course political they have become recently, it's unclear if in fact this is an effort to try to get more information about Epstein. Of course, we know both he was in jail and of course his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, has already been convicted. So in terms of actually trying to determine or find more information, not just about victims, but of course perpetrators, perhaps that's what we're seeing. But again, this is a case where you would expect those prosecutors who have worked the Epstein case would have far more information about the breadth and depth of Epstein's antics, more so than perhaps some of the people that we're seeing being called, which suggests that this is purely political and more political theater on top of that.
In other news, artificial intelligence tools will be rolled out to all police forces to tackle grooming gangs. Officers across all 43 forces in England and Wales will gain access to the investigative technology as part of a £426,000 funding boost for the Tackling Organised Exploitation programme. The intelligence and technical experts support forces investigating complex cases such as organised exploitation of modern slavery, county lines and child sex abuse. Some 13 forces currently have access to their apps, which are said to have been used over 12,000 times, saving more than £20 million and 16,000 hours for investigators. And Sir Keir Starmer has announced an £88 million package for youth clubs and schools as he warned children are too often isolated at home, facing the challenges of the online world. The funding is aimed at delivering services like new climbing walls and music lessons in a bid to buck the worrying trend of young people detached from the real world, Downing Street said. Some £22.5 million over 3 years will be used to fund access in 400 schools across the country to extracurricular activities such as sport, art and music, outdoor activities, debating or volunteering. The expansion is part of a wider effort to reconnect young people with the world around them. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So illegal migrants crossing the Channel may be able to use human rights loophole to avoid deportation, despite the government's one-in, one-out initiative, announced only yesterday.
Yes, well, under terms of this agreement with France, asylum seekers will not qualify for deportation if they lodge a human rights claim or say that they're under 18.
Meanwhile, Germany, which has seen the number of asylum seekers' arrivals halve in 6 months, have brought in seriously strict measures.
And Greece have also overridden the right for anyone to request asylum for at least 3 months. So where are we going wrong in the UK? It could be quite a long discussion there. Catherine Forster joining us live. It's really interesting, isn't it, that just a year or two ago, the idea of suspending human rights claims was seen as outrageous by many on the left and the centre of politics, to be honest. And yet a lot of these other countries in the EU, fairly liberal countries, are now seeking to do that, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And I think, you know, it is worth remembering this is a problem that the whole of Europe are facing, and some countries like Greece are taking much more radical measures than we are. And even Germany, who were so liberal that Angela Merkel, remember, back
Come
in
on down,
2006,
she
we
said,
can
didn't she?
do this.
Yeah.
You know, and 1 million people went in. They are taking a much tougher line. They're facing legal challenges too. But of course, they've had a number of terrorist attacks in Germany. I was in Munich after one, I think, back in February. So it's not a challenge that we're facing alone, but the devil, I think, really is in the detail of this deal. And yet again, a government comes in, makes an announcement, and it looks like it could all be undone in the courts because, first of all, we've got to tell France within 14 days if we want to send somebody back. If France has any concerns over security, they can just say no. Anybody who claims to be under 18 or has an outstanding human rights case or anything, court order or so on and so forth, can stall being sent back. France can veto anything. France have 28 days to respond to us saying we're sending somebody back. And if they simply don't respond, we have to keep that person. The whole thing can be suspended with a week's notice. The whole thing can be scrapped with a month's notice. And it's only a pilot scheme anyway.
And France, if they don't, France has no obligation to provide any details about who these people are who are crossing in the first place.
Yes. Now, the Times are reporting this morning that under no circumstances should personal data be transferred from France to the UK.
Unbelievable.
However, I would say a lot of this is still very unclear. Normally, when you get a big policy like this, you would get a background briefing for journalists from the Home Office. We haven't had that, so there are lots of unanswered questions. My understanding is that these people that we accept and bring in return will be processed online initially, but by the British. So that may not be quite as horrendous as, I must admit, it does sound. But, you know, Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, has said it is completely unworkable and will be ruthlessly exploited by human rights lawyers. That feels to me like exactly the same thing that Labour said when the Tories were trying to get round these laws about Rwanda. Meanwhile, Rwanda, of course, we spent 700 million taxpayers' money. It sounds like now Donald Trump is going to avail himself of that, using that for American deportation.
Sending them to Rwanda because he obviously thinks it's a deterrent. Catherine, thank you for that. Well, let's talk to the journalist James Jackson. James, the situation in Germany, can you help us? In Germany, I think asylum applications have fallen between 50 to 60%. What is Germany doing that we're not?
You see, Germany's been doing a lot, actually. I would say that the new government under Friedrich Merz said from the get-go, during the campaign, that tackling illegal migration, as well as overall asylum claims, would be their #1 priority, and that they do a number of changes. Of course, Germany has for a long time been the #1 destination for refugees, many of whom come from the Middle East, from Africa, and they seem to think that the streets are paved with gold here, but Germany itself has been going through a number of problems with poor economic growth, so as well as a number of terrorist attacks from former asylum claimants in the last year that really shocked the country. And we saw a shift from Angela Merkel's refugees welcome kind of movement, we'll manage, to a much harder line brought in by her rival, Friedrich Merz. So you have to say Merz is someone who's always disagreed with the Merkel line on migration, and he made that one of the cornerstones of his electoral campaign. So the main policy that they changed was on day one, they brought in what are called pushbacks. So, of course, Germany, unlike the UK, is not an island. And that means many people can come over quite easily through trains, through the road, even, walking across the border if necessary. And ultimately, Germany, under EU laws, was not allowed to say, listen, you can't come in, because people could just say, I'm claiming asylum, and then you have to process them in Germany. They don't put you in a hotel. Sometimes they put you in a camp. And I've been on reporting trips to these camps with the Daily Express and others during the electoral campaign. But it does cost the country a lot of money, and plenty of Germans saw this as a security risk. So I think there's also a lot of Germans who thought, listen, we've had some Syrian doctors come in. We have had a reasonable success at the people who've come in, but it's just simply getting too many. And another issue, of course, is the war in Ukraine. Germany saw 1 million people come in the first year, so really huge numbers. And what they've done is they've turned that around so that Germany is no longer the #1 country for asylum applications. Actually, I believe dropped to 3rd behind France and Spain.
Well, James, is Germany having any more success in deporting failed asylum seekers or people whose visas have expired? So I read this morning that although obviously have had great success in reducing the number of claimants, 80% of failed asylum seekers remain in Germany and have yet to be deported. Is that true? Is the government addressing that challenge as well?
So the 80% figure is slightly misleading, because a majority of those have what's called a Duldung, or permission. So, it's not as high as that, but the government has made some pretty big steps to deporting asylum seekers who have been failed, including even opening talks with the Taliban in Afghanistan, being one of the first European countries to do so. So it's a huge about face, because no one really expected that a few years ago, that Germany would be talking with the Taliban to be able to deport Afghan asylum seekers, failed asylum seekers. So, deportation seemed to be a much bigger thing in German politics. Every state does it, and people discuss it, sometimes in terms which you might find disagreeable. So I remember under Angela Merkel, there was the interior minister had 66 Afghan asylum seekers deported for his 66th birthday. So I think they've normalized deportations in a way that the UK hasn't, but I also think that's because they just have a much larger number of failed asylum seekers in the absolute terms, because it's much easier to access than the UK.
James, thank you for that. That's James Jackson. I think we should get the Home Secretary to get on a plane to Berlin, where James is, and flip in, learn and see what's going on. We're going to talk now to a former advisor to the government in Vec Cooper, Danny Shaw. Danny Shaw, look, we've just heard from Germany, where they're having much greater success, and I think you can explain to us what's happening in Greece, where the Greek government have decided enough and no more, and they're no longer respecting various conventions and treaties, and they're just not accepting it. Can you explain what's happening in Greece?
Well, I think in Greece, they've had so many migrants coming across on small boats and so on, that they've just decided that they're going to detain them in a camp for a period of time to try and act as some kind of deterrent effect. And that's what they're doing in Greece. In Germany, it appears they're just refusing to accept some people as you've heard, some people at the border and turn them back. Clearly easier to do if you have a land border than if you have a sea border. Then it presents.
But I think Greece is doing this on at least one of its islands.
Yes, that's right. And it is an example of a mood across European Union countries to take a harder line on migration. This is not just a problem that's facing the UK. I mean, it's interesting to note that the numbers in Germany, for example, are much greater than the number of asylum applications in the UK. Last year, they had 140,000 in a 6-month period of applications.
Yeah.
That's halved to 70,000. So the numbers are still very, very large, larger numerically than the UK, which is why this is a problem for them as well as it is for us. And it's why When we are saying in Britain, well, can we just turn people back to go back to France and come across in small boats? European Union countries and France are saying, well, we've got our own problems as well, which brings us on to the one in, one out deal, and why the numbers are just going to be very, very small initially, because France and other EU countries don't want people coming back there when they're already dealing with large numbers of migrants themselves.
Now, Danny, the Achilles heel for all of these countries is the ECHR, the ability for individual migrants to make claims under claims to family life or claims against torture, and these things have been massively overinterpreted compared to how they were meant in the 1940s. But the way that Greece, for example, and Poland have dealt with this is to essentially suspend those human rights claims, much to the annoyance of human rights lawyers. But this is, again, what's scuppering our own one-in, one-out deal, is these human rights claims. At what point is the Labour government going to realise that they're going to have to either leave the ECHR or suspend certain aspects of the Human Rights Act in order to make any progress at all?
I don't think the government will leave the European Convention on Human Rights, Miriam. I don't think that will happen.
But they could disapply certain elements of it when it comes to migration. That's what Greece has done, that's what Poland are doing. And yes, they're facing criticism, but they are doing that.
They have set up an internal review to look at a stricter interpretation of the laws, particularly regarding Article 8, the right to privacy and family life, and whether or not that will mean that there will be more foreign national offenders deported, more failed asylum seekers deported as a result of those changes to the law. And they may go further as we move towards a general election in 2028, 2029. It's possible that they may have to go further and make changes or promise changes, but they won't be leaving the convention. I just don't think that that's going to be on the cards for this government. But there clearly is scope, and there is a groundswell of support, if you like, across the EU to say that there needs to be a stricter interpretation of the laws. And hopefully the action taken by Greece and by Germany will persuade lawmakers and the people who are responsible for the convention to see that unless they do amend those policies, then it's going to fall into disrepute and it will be unworkable.
And the trouble is, Danny, politically for this government, this is going to be a real problem. If people see in this country now, Germany has cut asylum applications by 50, 60%, so just saying, pushing back at the border, and Greece are completely ignoring the ECHR on various islands. And yet this government is going to obsess about staying within that law, which means even their much vaunted new one-in, one-out deal is just going to unravel because of human rights lawyers.
I don't know, Andrew, if it will unravel. I just don't think it will ramp up to sufficient numbers. I think they probably will get some people returned to France, and they will take some, genuine asylum seekers in return. But I just think the numbers will be too small to make a deterrent difference. You need 80% plus of numbers of people coming in to be returned to really, to demonstrate that it's not worth making that journey. And I don't think the numbers will get up to that, despite what the Home Secretary clearly hopes for. So I'm not sure if it will unravel. I think there will be legal challenges in the courts, just as we saw over Rwanda. I expect that the government will probably win those ultimately, particularly because France is a safe country. There's no question about that, as there was with Rwanda. That was the sticking point there. So that should be easier.
How many times can they appeal, Danny? How many times will they be allowed to appeal?
Well, there may be a case that will go all the way, will be speeded up, go all the way to the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court, which will decide. And then that will act as a kind of test case, if you like. And if that's determined in the government's favour, then the other challenges will probably fall away quite swiftly. But I just don't think the numbers will be great. And I think operationally, as we saw with Rwanda, there are so many sticking points. There are so many bits you have to get right, to get this process over the line, that there's always problems operationally with these kind of schemes to deport people. So I just think the numbers won't be big enough.
All right, Danny, that's Danny Cooper, former advisor to...
Danny Shaw,
sorry. Danny Shaw, former advisor to Cooper. And still ahead.
Well, what's next for Prince Harry, as he's lost his battle for control of the charity he set up in his mother's memory?
And next we'll be going through the papers with Stephen Pound and Mike Parry, the Statler and Waldorf of GB News. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
What I want to talk about now, though, is a Christian street preacher who was shut down by London's Transport Police outside King's Cross Station. Now, she has exclusively spoken to GB News, claiming that Christians are being heavily persecuted in this country and that police are not doing this to other religious speakers. Shocking, indeed, if true. Well, are we living in this two-tier approach by the authorities that we hear so much about? I'm delighted to say I am joined now in the studio by that street preacher herself, Monique Bailey.
It is true that the police did tell us that you need a permit, so that is truth, but it's the way it was handled. She was very... It was just astonishing. I just couldn't believe how a police person could come against us like that. Like, we were abiding by the rules. And by the way, I didn't actually put the full clip on just to, in a way, save her, because it actually got worse.
OK.
Yeah.
Monique, can I just quickly ask, if you take a step back and look at Britain, you know, as a Christian, you see the demonstrations that we've had since October 7th, some would say pro-Hamas, anti-Israel demonstrations, pretty overt displays of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
We've had the Lucy Connolly case. We've had, I would argue, clear evidence of a two-tier approach within our judicial legal system. Do you think that we are actually now entering a society where some groups, some religions are treated much more harshly than others? Do you think, for example, if you had been a Muslim preacher in King's Cross Station, the reaction would have been the same?
Yeah, of course, every religion gets something thrown at them, but I do think, of course, Christianity is the most persecuted, and I do think we will see it more.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. It's 26 minutes past 10. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
The boys are here. Broadcast journalist Mike Parry. There he is. Oh, he's got his hat on.
Oh, my word.
Very good hat. He's got the GB News branding. And Stephen Pound, the former Labour, who's not got his branding. He's got his hat as well.
I think we need some of these,
good.
Andrew.
Why haven't they given us one of those hats?
I don't know.
Well, we bought them, actually.
Did you buy them? Yeah, they don't give anything away here, I can tell you. Now, boys, what are you talking about?
Well, look at the situation regarding the Chancellor. I mean, if she thought she was in enough trouble to burst into tears in the House of Commons just a few weeks ago, I think you're going to find there's going to be an ocean of tears coming shortly.
Not least from the country.
In the country. Now, you know the old joke about how do you make yourself a small fortune?
You start with a big one.
Walk into a casino with a big one.
Yeah.
So, £22 billion deficit, allegedly, black hole, which none of us agreed with.
Well, the Office Budget Responsibility said it was less than 10.
Exactly. And usually that's sort of swap over money from one government to another and their aspirations on spending, OK? You get that. She's managed to turn 10 into 50 billion quid's worth of debt, dragging the economy down as though there was a huge weight wrapped around it. It's a disgrace, Stephen, and I bet you're ashamed to have ever been a member of the party that is now going to bankrupt this country.
Yeah, 5p in the pound. This financial report says this think tank says it could be up to 5p in the pound on basic and top rate of tax.
Yeah, the key expression.
When every Labour government runs out of our money, it didn't take this lot's run out in less than
Andrew,
a year.
the key thing there is could be and is estimated. Look, there's 2 or 3 things which nobody knew was going to happen. Nobody knew that we were going to have to spend up to this incredible additional money on defence. Nobody knew that the Trump tariffs...
didn't have to. That was his choice. That was the Prime Minister's political choice.
It wasn't. I'm sorry.
Yes, it was.
It was no
yes,
choice.
It was.
The nation has to defend itself. There's no choice there. We were under threat and we had to spend money on defence. We had to increase our expenditure on defence. No question about it. Nobody anticipated that Trump...
But we're not going to, because the 5% is not going to come in until the middle of the 2030s.
Exactly.
It's so far away.
It's already started.
Everything's a pipe dream in this government. Everything is an absolute blinking pipe dream.
What we've done is we've actually listened to GBNews and cut some of the overseas development money and actually transferred that to...
I'm not disagreeing that that isn't a good thing to do, but
that's not enough.
These
It's
amounts,
not enough.
exactly, they are tiny compared to the order of magnitude of money that we are overspending by each year.
As somebody pointed out, the money we're spending on interest alone.
50 billion is the defence budget, 100 billion is the repayments.
Or 2/3 of the NHS spending. That's what your Chancellor is wasting our public money on.
Andrew, it's not fair to blame that on Rachel Reeves. This is long-standing debt. But this is long-standing debt that previous governments, especially, I'm afraid,
Miriam,
did not protect against
I
interest
totally
rate
disagree.
increases.
The role of the Chancellor when she gets in is to look at the books and say this can't go on.
If a quarter of your debt is on this short-term repayment that's not protected against inflation, there's nothing you can do.
Yes, there is. You can cut government spending.
I'm sorry.
You can cut government spending.
There's nothing you can do to change the interest payments.
You're a big admirer of Tony Blair, obviously, because in 1999 he paid off the national debt. We cleared the debts. We cleared the payments.
Yeah, but that's because the Tories had left him with a surplus budget. Left him with a surplus budget. Look, I mean, the spending is so out of control. It's utterly ridiculous. And did you know that the loans to the government from the banks, right, are 1% higher? 1% higher than they were when Liz Truss was supposed to have smashed the economy. And now there's so little confidence in this country that the bondholders are charging 1% more.
The terrifying thing is what we've got is debt as a percentage of GDP, and we're right up in the 90s now.
Nearly 100.
Exactly. Well, that is up.
Put this in layman's terms. This report is saying that our income taxes could go up by 5p in the pound.
Unbelievable.
Pensioners, small businessmen and women. That is eye-watering.
It could. And don't forget, Rachel Reeves has actually said that she's committed herself not to raising personal income tax. Now, she's in a terrible position. I entirely agree with you.
No, the country's in a worse position.
The thing is, we know there's one thing that we absolutely have to do, and that is actually cut the welfare expenditure. We can't have the situation where 1 in 4 of us is on benefits.
You just had an opportunity to cut welfare, and the Labour MPs killed it.
And the House of Commons wouldn't wear it.
And
the Labour MPs wouldn't wear it. The Tories would.
And there's 10 million people in this country
economically... The Tories voted against it.
Economically inactive. And the other thing I want the government to answer the question is this. How come there's 100,000 more civil servants in this country now than there were before COVID? I just don't get it. How can 100,000 people working and doing nothing possibly be advantageous to the economy?
You've got to ask yourself, what is the... Do you know the police count in those figures? Do you know the armed forces count in those? They are all civil servants in those figures.
Not in Whitehall, they're not.
No, that's
I'm
a different
talking about
matter.
figures in Whitehall.
That's a different matter.
Shall we move on to something slightly more...
Something less contentious.
Yes, something less contentious, something slightly more rural, because Kemi Badenoch is claiming in the Daily Express, they're reporting this, that Labour is conducting an assault on rural life. Of course, there were the changes to inheritance tax, lots of complaints from farmers. Stephen, do you think Labour can do anything to win back the rural vote?
It's going to be slightly difficult, but at the moment, let's face it, farmers pay half the inheritance tax that you and I pay. You know, they get subsidised diesel, they get a whole load of benefits. What the government should have done more sensibly is to say, what we want to do is... Jeremy Clarkson quite rightly said, you remember when he bought his farm, he said, I'm buying it because it's a really, really good wheeze. There's a lot of these people who bought these huge farms,
they'll find them and give them a different set of rules to the ordinary farmer.
What I'm saying, the small, particularly I'm thinking of the Welsh Hill farmers and people like that, the small farmers, there should have been an exemption for them. But the great big barley barons who are making millions, they should be paying tax.
But there's very few of them.
They are paying tax.
The average farmer...
they're paying half what you and I pay.
The average farmer on his farm, a one-farm man, the average income he takes in for him and his family, working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, is about £28,000. Now, how on earth is that family going to pay death inheritance duty if the farmer dies? And he could die falling under the wheels of his combine harvester. It's a dangerous And
don't forget, the other thing is...
Dirty job.
Right, unlike the three of us, or four of us, they actually get 10 years to pay the inheritance. So they pay half
Steve,
of
I
what
think
over 10 years. It's not a bad
apples
deal.
with pears, though, because you're saying these farmers pay half the amount of inheritance tax, but we're not talking about farms as private estates. They are going concerns. And if you own a different type of business, you do get to pass that business on tax-free.
No, you don't.
So actually, they're making the wrong comparison.
Not if you run a corner shop, you still pay 40% if you want to pass that on to your kids.
And also, Stephen, if your farm's worth £1 million, and you're earning £28,000 a year, how on earth are you going to pay the first year's money anyway? The £100,000 you owe in the first year.
It's up to £3 million.
And by the way, we also know that farmers, and they know more about running a farm than we do, are so desperately worried, some of them have committed suicide.
No, not one person has committed suicide.
I'm sorry, a coroner...
One person died before.
Hang on, a coroner has referred to an inquest into the death of a farmer, which he linked it to the farmer's worry about the inheritance tax. That is on the record.
But let's get the key thing here. Kemi Badenoch has made this a great big sweeping attack on, on Labour's policy. There's one thing missing from this. What on earth is Kemi Badenoch proposing? She said her grandfather was... There's nothing coming from her.
The Tories are not in power.
It's easy to attack.
No. That's her job. She's leader of the opposition. You're not in power. Can I ask you a more prosaic question? What do you buy about Kemi Badenoch's idea that she's an Essex girl?
Essex girl.
Well, she's also said her grandfather was a farmer.
Yes, well, she's claiming Essex heritage. She is the MP for Saffron Walden.
She is. Right.
Essex
girl. I've never seen her
an Essex girl.
Never seen her in a pair of white stilettos.
Right.
OK, so that to me means she's not an Essex girl.
Be careful where you're going with this, Stephen Pound, because we know we have to rein you in sometimes.
I've never seen her in Basildon on a Saturday in what they call Las Vegas.
She was actually born, of course, in Africa, but she was
she was born in London.
Born in London, then went to
Nigeria.
But she brought up in Wimbledon, mainly. But do you buy the fact she's an Essex girl?
Gosh, well, where are we all from? I mean, she's from Nigeria, but she represents Essex. I mean...
But, I mean, you could become adopted as an Essex girl. But Stephen, I want you to tell me this as well, and tell me honestly.
I'm a Yorkshire
Isn't it true that Labour hate anything to do with the country?
Mike, don't be ridiculous.
I'm sorry. So they're big fans of fox hunting, are they? They're big fans of the landed gentry. They're big fans of people who've got country mansions and estates because people have worked hard to go and buy them.
I'm sorry,
they
Mike,
hate all of that.
Mike, you can always speak up for
envy, malice and spite.
Listen, you can speak up for the fox hunters and those people in countries. A lot of people in the country have got no time for fox hunters, the unspeakable in pursuit of the uneatable, jumping over people's fences and gardens. I'm sure there's plenty of people
I wish they'd kill a few more foxes. Ghastly, horrible creatures.
Well, it is part of the country way of life, which people in Islington
you cannot say incest is part of the country way of life.
It's true, Stephen. You probably hate country life as well, don't you?
I withdraw that. Thank you very much.
Labour associate the country with rich people for some unknown reason.
It is a class war. I think you've nailed it.
Yeah.
And on that note...
And white class war too.
Well, absolutely. But if you're a farm labourer living in a tight cottage, earning about 14 grand a year, you tell me you're rich and privileged.
Indeed.
Gentlemen.
Let's leave it there.
On that harmonious note, Stephen's
Before we
usual attack
explore
on the
any other
entire
avenues.
countryside. Dear me.
Here's your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you. The top stories this hour. Illegal migrants crossing the English Channel may be able to use a human rights loophole to avoid deportation. But Dame Angela Eagle has rejected opposition's suggestions that that is the case. Charities Commission has found no evidence of bullying or harassment at a charity set up by Prince Harry, but it has found that an internal dispute at Centre Barley severely impacted the charity's reputation. Rachel Reeves has been warned she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn to plug a £50 billion black hole. Former US President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary Clinton have been subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee in connection with the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation. Artificial intelligence tools will be rolled out to all police forces to tackle grooming gangs. And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more news from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Well, coming up next, Prince Harry is facing criticism from the charity watchdog this morning. More on that with GB News royal correspondent Cameron Walker later.
Good morning. This is your latest Met Office weather update for GB News. For many, today is going to be a fine day, the exception just being across the far north of Scotland. Here there will be a front bringing a bit of cloud, a bit of drizzly rain at times as well, though a lot of that is going to clear through as we go towards lunchtime. Elsewhere, like I said, a fine picture for most, lots of fine sunny weather around, albeit a bit of cloud bubbling up at times, and some high-level cloud may make the sunshine a bit hazy, a bit milky as we go through into the afternoon. Temperatures are going to be a little bit higher than yesterday and feeling a bit warmer too, with more sunshine and lighter winds, highs of around 24-25 Celsius towards the south and just a few degrees lower than this further north. As we go through into this evening and actually across the south, apart from some thicker cloud perhaps across parts of the southwest, for many it's staying fine. There'll be some late glimmers of sunshine as well for most here. A slightly different story as we head towards the northwest. Winds picking up and a bit more cloud starting to push in across parts of Northern Ireland, and a few outbreaks of rain for the west of Scotland too, and it is going to be turning a little bit cloudier because of a frontal system that's starting to make its way in. This is gradually going to push its way east and southeastwards as we go overnight, so things turning pretty wet across Northern Ireland, much of Scotland, and some rain just about fringing into parts of northwest England and across western Wales as we go through the early hours of tomorrow as well. Towards the southeast, staying dry with some clearer skies, temperatures here holding up in the mid-teens generally, and similar across northwestern parts, but obviously here is going to be a cloudy, wet start to the day tomorrow. That front continues its progress south and eastwards. It could be a bit heavy at times, particularly across higher ground of Wales and northwest England, and across the southeast really it's going to take until quite late on for the rain to arrive, and by the time it does, that front will have broken up so much it will just be a few spots of rain and a bit of cloud. Behind the front, something a little bit brighter, and for many, temperatures peaking in the high teens or low to mid-20s.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M8, the westbound closure at junction 13 is causing delays due to a road incident. Motorists should consider alternative routes. Meanwhile, an incident on the M4 eastbound between junction 23 Rogier and junction 22 at the Prince of Wales Bridge is leading to delays. Drivers should remain vigilant. The A45 westbound, between the junctions with the A14 and A6, has lane closures due to a collision. And on the trains, the ScotRail service is suspended between Inverness and Kyle of Lochel, Wick and Aberdeen, with disruption in the Inverkeithing area. Northern buses replace trains between Sellafield and Workington. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. It is 20 to 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom.
Yes, remember.
I don't know where I am. Been here for too long.
So Prince Harry's back where he hates being on the front pages because he's lost control of his charity centre, Bali. He's never returning. This was the charity set up in his mother's name in Africa, Botswana and Lesotho. He's been involved in a hugely damaging bullying route. Now, Cameron, he's walked away from Centre Bali. This charity commission report basically said the trustees, Harry and co, didn't behave well. People who ran it didn't behave well. But what I want to ask you is, where does this leave Prince Harry?
Well, it's an incredibly good question. His spokesperson tells me that Prince Harry is looking at options to do more charity work within Botswana and Lesotho, where Centre Bali does its work helping young people. And I asked, well, what is he going to do there? And they say, I suppose all options are on the table. So does that mean he's going to be launching another charity? Does it mean he's going to be donating to an already existing charity? But what isn't going to happen is him going back to Centre Bali. So that's one point. The second point is the Invictus Games. We know that for his kind of Paralympic-style competition for wounded veterans around the world, that is something that has been a huge success, which was launched by Prince Harry in 2014. He's continuing to champion that. It's coming here to the United Kingdom in 2027. It's thought that perhaps that could be an opportunity for some kind of reconciliation between Prince Harry, the King, maybe Prince William, or I think that's less likely than the King, to be perfectly honest, in 2027. But apart from that, there's nothing concrete that Prince Harry is currently doing. He's launched his travel company called Travelist, which is meant to be this kind of sustainable travel firm to encourage people to go on holidays more sustainably. But of course, he gets criticism from that because he flies on private jets, flies in first class everywhere kind of around the world.
Criticism, isn't it?
Quite. So that is an issue for him on that front. He's also kind of this ambassador for this company called Better Up, all about kind of making the work sector a better place. But that's kind of it. Whereas Meghan, on the other hand, she's launched a business. She's flogging wine, she's flogging flower petals and all of the rest of it.
Making jam.
Making jam, yes. She seems to be... It's clear that Meghan has a huge passion for that. But where does that leave Prince Harry? Because he's got nothing to do with it. There's certainly a professional separation, I think, going on at the moment. Prince Harry appears to be wanting to focus more on philanthropy. I understand he does have something in the works, but he's not ready to announce it yet. I suspect maybe it's going to be something commercial with a bit of philanthropy thrown in, but the details are really, really sketchy. But what's happening at the end of this year, Andrew and Miriam, their Netflix deal, that's drying up, isn't it? That comes to an end in just a couple of months' time. So in terms of documentaries or his media career, if it ever started in the first place, I suspect that's over. But I think from his perspective, that might be a good thing, because every time he opens his mouth about talking about being a member of the royal family, or the ratings weren't good for his Polo documentary, for example, it gave him really bad publicity, and therefore his popularity ratings didn't suffered.
There's been lots of focus, of course, on them trying to increase their income. They want to support a certain lifestyle. They want to be able to fund the security that they need. But do you think there's also an element here of searching for purpose? Purpose is something that Harry did have as part of the royal family. He didn't like it, but it was certainly, you know, something to live for. His life's mapped out, the service is mapped out. One day his brother's going to become king. Do you think that's what's lacking now?
It's certainly a possibility. I think Prince Harry, before he even met Meghan Markle, was clearly unhappy being a working member of the royal family. He was paranoid that people were briefing against him, as he still has talked about in the past, hasn't he? And I think Meghan was the catalyst to allow him to leave. But I think the grass is always greener, isn't it? And I think that is what we're seeing play out here. Yes, he did very well with the first Netflix documentary talking about his leaving the royal family. His book clearly made him a lot of money. But everything else he's done media-wise hasn't really gone too well in terms of the ratings.
The stuff that did well involved him being indiscreet and pretty rude about his own family, which has damaged his standing long term.
Yeah, it made him money, but
made him money, but damaged
his reputation.
And Meghan's passion, on the other hand, is being an influencer, isn't it? It's launching a business, it's being a female entrepreneur. She appears to be thriving at the moment in her current role. Clearly, Prince Harry as a father, that's a huge focus for him, and clearly he does love his children. He was at a surfing competition with them at the weekend with Meghan as well. But I think his focus, he's still working it out, I think is what I'm thinking. I think what he is going to start pivoting towards is more charity work and more philanthropy rather than any kind of American media deals. Feels like a lost soul. Yeah, I think a lot of people do feel that. I think a lot of people are starting to feel slightly sorry for Prince Harry, but I don't think he's given up by any stretch of the imagination. He's certainly working on a few things behind the scenes.
I may think he's a lost soul, but I don't feel sorry for him, I'm afraid. Not one bit.
I do. I might be the only person in the country.
Yeah. Anyway. No, you're the only person in the country, but I don't feel sorry for him. He's all on himself.
Well, coming up next, happy Bridmas, Andrew.
Thank you.
Anna Riley will be celebrating with us from Bridlington shortly, wrong time of year. But first of all, if you're in search of some holiday sun the right time of year, here's the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. For many, as we go through the rest of today, it's looking largely fine. There'll be some decent, warm, sunny breaks around, but there is some wet weather that's going to push in later on. That's because there's a frontal system currently out in the Atlantic, but that's going to make its way gradually southeastwards as we go through the next 24 hours. For the time being, though, like I said, it's a fine picture for the majority of us. Some decent sunshine on offer, perhaps the cloud bubbling up a little bit as we go into
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back, and it's 10 to 11, and Bridlington is set to deck the halls a few months early as the town transforms into a festive wonderland for its annual Bridmas Day celebration.
Sounds like a retail gimmick to me, but visitors can expect everything from Santa Claus and his elves to Christmas-themed crafts, festive food, traditional games, live music, and even a visit from a pantomime dame.
Well, joining us now from Bridlington is GB News reporter Anna Riley. Anna, this seems terribly unseasonable, but tell us more.
Good morning to you both and happy Bridmas. You join us here on the magnificent beach that's decked out. We can see behind us we've got Santa Claus, we've got Christmas trees, we've got a snowman, but most importantly we've got the star of the pantomime, Jo Standerline, Panto Dame, starring in Dick Whittington this year. Jo, tell us what today is all about.
Well, Adam, my darling, Bridlington isn't just about the summertime, it's about all year round, and we're putting on a bit of a Bridmas Day today, but with me as the central star attraction. I'm a little bit embarrassed to say so, but you know, that's what it is. It's to bring everyone in to this beautiful, beautiful seaside town. You get fishing boats and harbours and beach and fish and chips. Anything you want, darling Anna.
What more could you ask for? And why is that so important when it's sort of seasonal, isn't it, being at the seaside?
Well, it can be seasonal at the seaside, but you know how it is. We need cheering up. Constantly, every day of the week for me. So bring yourself down here. It's right in the middle. It's not difficult to get to. It's important for local trade, and it's important for you to... Is Andrew in today? Is that... It's you, isn't it? Can you remember me, darling? You might not. It was a back alley round Fleet Street. And, well, it was very important to me.
Wondering, we'll have to ask Andrew about that one. But what's it like seeing everyone turn out today?
It's absolutely brilliant. I mean, this place is packed and we've got the gorgeous weather for it as well. I think, Anna, you brought a little bit of sunshine to the beach today.
That's it, brought that ray of sunshine. And what else can people do other than seeing you today?
Well, we can knock about with Father Christmas. There's a choir giving it loads over there. There's the snacks and there's the treats and building sandcastles. You can do absolutely everything you'd normally do at the seaside and more. And of course, I'll be knocking about for VIP personal introductions.
And when people want to come back at winter time, what's Dick Whittington all about?
Right, Dick Whittington, it's we've got this lovely boxer in it. What's he called? Tommy Coyle. Have you seen him?
I have.
Oh, I think twice a day I'm going to end up getting married to him, but I'm telling you the plot. We've got Dick Whittington becomes Lord Mayor of London. We've got a cat. I thought the cat only had one eye, but it turns out and he was just walking backwards. It's going to be marvellous. Come on down.
Definitely, you've heard it here from the Dame. Come on down if you're in the area, celebrate Bridmas and certainly come back at Christmas time, but Christmas time has come early today.
Love you, Andrew.
I have no recollection of ever meeting a pantomime dame down a back alley.
Indeed.
Just need to put that on the record. But lovely to see you both. Happy Bridmas to you both. Fascinating. Quite clever by the town, isn't it?
Yes, it's certainly an interesting way of changing the summer narrative.
Exactly. Yes, but you're a bit lost for words. I can see that. Now, still ahead, Keir Starmer's much vaunted in-out deal, the migrant deal, appears to have fallen apart before it's even begun. There's, of course, a loophole to dodge deportation. Who surprised by that? You're listening to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Miriam.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. For many, as we go through the rest of today, it's looking largely fine. There'll be some decent, warm, sunny breaks around, but there is some wet weather that's going to push in later on. That's because there's a frontal system currently out in the Atlantic, but that's going to make its way gradually southeastwards as we go through the next 24 hours. For the time being, though, like I said, it's a fine picture for the majority of us. Some decent sunshine on offer, perhaps the cloud bubbling up a little bit as we go into the afternoon, and there may be some high-level cloud around, so the sunshine may turn a little milky, but it's going to stay dry for the vast majority of us. And with the sunshine, temperatures a little bit higher than yesterday, and feeling it with the lighter winds, temperatures peaking around 25 Celsius towards the south. As we go towards the evening, we are going to see the winds starting to pick up a little bit and a little bit more cloud pushing across western parts of Scotland and across parts of Northern Ireland, perhaps a few outbreaks of rain by around 5 or 6 o'clock. Further east and south, though, clinging on to that fine weather well into the evening. So some glimmers of sunshine to look forward to as we go through the end of the day. Yes, the cloud may be a bit thicker in some places, but on the whole, it's staying fine for a little while yet. Overnight, however, that weather system does make its way in, so wet weather pushing across parts of Northern Ireland, much of Scotland, and some of that rain feeding into parts of northern and western Wales and western and northern England as well as we go through the early hours of tomorrow morning. Towards the southeast, staying dry with some clear skies, a bit of a fresh night for some, but still temperatures generally holding up in the mid-teens Celsius. Then through tomorrow, that front continues its way southeastwards. It will bring some heavy bursts of rain across some high ground towards the west, but it breaks up and fizzles out as it moves through. So towards the southeast, not really seeing any of the rain associated with that. And behind the front, we are going to see a scattering of showers pushing their way in. Temperatures may be down a degree or so compared to today, but feeling warm in any sunny breaks.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year. We'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Okay.
Good morning, it's 11 a.m. on Wednesday, the 6th of August, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Now, we found out this morning that migrants can dodge deportation under Labour's brand new one-in, one-out swap deal with France by lodging human rights cases or claiming to be under 18. But as Germany sees the number of asylum seeker arrivals halve in 6 months, where is the UK going wrong?
Well, the devil really is in the detail with this deal, much of it unclear, but we do know we will have to pay all of the costs and the whole thing can be suspended with just a week's notice.
They say it's a headache for the Chancellor, but what about the country? She's going to have to break her promise on raised taxes or cut spending to plug a £50 billion black hole, according to a major new financial report.
And what's next for Prince Harry as he faces criticism after a bitter dispute with a charity he co-founded when that went public? A source tells GB News he is devastated.
They're calling it the culinary crossover of the century. They are, I'm not. KFC is teaming up with Greggs to launch a sausage roll, yuck, drenched in gravy. One of our guests is plucking up the courage to try it live on air.
It's been a pretty gloomy year for economic news, hasn't it, Andrew? And of course, the Chancellor and the Labour government have been blamed for a lot of the decisions they've been made, but some of these problems have been years in the making.
Of course. But it's how they deal with it. And, of course, the Chancellor's sort of tied herself in knots, hasn't she? Because she said, I won't really raise these taxes, I won't raise these taxes, I'm not going to raise borrowing. She's going to have to do something.
And what worries me is that even if she comes up with a sensible plan, Labour MPs won't back it, and therefore she won't actually be able to act in the national interest because Parliament won't support her.
The welfare bill is enormous. There was £4 billion worth of budget cuts proposed and Labour MPs voted it down.
That's
Well,
right.
they had to drop it.
Exactly. And I think there's this view, particularly after COVID, and particularly on the left, that the government can just print money forever and there'll never be any consequences. And why can't we have a few billion extra here, a few billion?
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that, and the chickens are coming home to roost.
Yeah, they certainly are. Now, we want to know what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/you'll say.
First of all, here are the news headlines.
Andrew, Miriam, thank you very much. The top stories. Illegal migrants crossing the Channel may be able to use a human rights loophole to avoid deportation. But Dame Angela Eagle has rejected opposition's suggestions that that is the case. Under terms of the agreement with France, asylum seekers will not qualify for deportation if they lodge a human rights claim or say that they're under the age of 18. This is just one of the potential loopholes which could be exploited and threatens to undermine the government's attempt to, quote, smash the gangs. It says the one-in, one-out deal with France has only just come into effect. Shadow Culture Secretary Joe Robertson spoke to GB News Breakfast.
I think people have become very, very weary of governments of different colours. I accept that we didn't do enough, coming up with these gimmicks and expecting to hoodwink people. One in, one out. I mean, it said if it does what it says on the tin, one in, one out isn't going to reduce the number of migrants in this country, because one in means there'll be one out the other side. So I don't think it's going to work. We don't even have numbers. The government aren't even telling us how many people will be deported under this scheme. So if they can't even give us the numbers, how do we know whether it's successful or not?
Prince Harry is facing criticism from the charity watchdog after a dispute at a charity he co-founded was allowed to spill into the public eye. The Charity Commission has issued a formal action plan for Sentebale, the Duke's charity supporting children and young people in southern Africa. It flagged leadership confusion and poor governance, but found no evidence of bullying or misconduct by Prince Harry, despite claims from the charity's current chair. A spokesperson for Harry says the findings clear him, but claims the real damage will be felt by the children the charity supports. Rachel Reeves has been warned she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn to plug a £50 billion black hole. In a warning, the National Institute of Economic and Social Research said the Chancellor is now on course to miss targets and spending promises as finances plunge deeper into the red. The report has fuelled speculation over how the government may look to boost tax revenues in the autumn, including mounting rumours of a possible wealth tax. Former US President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary Clinton have been subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee in connection with the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation. The committee is seeking information about the deceased financier's history after President Donald Trump decided against releasing more federal files despite widespread backlash and pressure from within his own party. Donald Trump has denied prior knowledge of Epstein's crimes, claiming he ended their relationship a long time ago. Epstein died in a New York jail cell in 2019, awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. US political analyst Eric Ham spoke to GB News.
Well, when we see these House committees, and of course we know how partisan and of course political they have become recently, it's unclear if in fact this is an effort to try to get more information about Epstein. Of course, we know both he was in jail and of course his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, has already been convicted. So in terms of actually trying to determine or find more information, not just about victims, but of course perpetrators, perhaps that's what we're seeing. But again, this is a case where you would expect those prosecutors who have worked the Epstein case would have far more information about the breadth and depth of Epstein's antics, more so than perhaps some of the people that we're seeing being called, which suggests that this is purely political and more political theater on top of that.
The Russian President Vladimir Putin's meeting with US President Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff in Moscow. It comes as US President Donald Trump has set a deadline of Friday for Russia to agree to end the Ukraine war or face new sanctions. After arriving in Moscow today, Mr. Witkoff was met by presidential special representative Kirill Dmitriev. Donald Trump has described the meet as pivotal in determining whether the United States goes ahead with new sanctions against Russia. And artificial intelligence tools will be rolled out to all police forces to tackle grooming gangs. Officers across all 43 forces in England and Wales will gain access to the investigative technology as part of a £426,000 funding boost for the Tackling Organised Exploitation programme. The intelligence and technical experts support forces investigating complex cases such as organised exploitation of modern slavery, county lines and child sex abuse. Some 13 forces currently have access to their apps, which are said to have been used over 12,000 times, saving more than £20 million and 16,000 hours for investigators. And those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3286 and €1.1476. The price of gold, £2,530 and 25 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,156 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Welcome back. It's 8 minutes past 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
And we're talking about the gaping great chasm, loophole, call it what you will, for those illegal migrants crossing the channel that they can use to get round the government's so-called one-in, one-out policy.
Yes, well, under terms of this agreement with France that came into force yesterday, asylum seekers will not qualify for deportation if they lodge a human rights claim or say that they're under 18.
Meanwhile, Germany's seen the number of their asylum seekers more than halve in 6 months after they brought in strict measures. They're effectively saying no to people at the border.
Yes, and Greece also, they've overridden the right for anyone to request asylum in their country for at least 3 months. So where in the United Kingdom are we going wrong? Well, joining us with all the details, Karen Forster, I understand you've been sifting through the many pages of this exciting new deal. What have you found?
Yes, so it's 21 pages, this deal, and I have to say it is deeply, deeply unclear. I was still trying to get some clarification from the Home Office, but it does look like there are big potential loopholes that asylum seekers and lawyers are going to exploit. Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, has said it is completely unworkable and will be ruthlessly exploited by human rights lawyers. Of course, where have we heard that from before?
Sure.
Oh, we heard that from Labour, who used exactly the same terms to discuss the Rwanda deal. So it feels like we've swapped one government making promises to stop the boats and not doing so, with another government promising to smash the gangs while the numbers are up 50% on where we were a year ago. So it sounds like people who claim to be under 18 or have any sort of outstanding human rights claim can basically get out of potentially being sent back to France. Even if people are sent back to France, and we expect the numbers to be very low, we then get somebody in return. Now, my understanding is that those are people that will be processed sort of online initially, but by the British in France. But we won't have any access to information that the French hold about those people. So if any of those people have got criminal records or anything else, they won't be telling the British. Those people that are then allowed to come on that scheme...
And just explain why that is. Is that because of some data protection issue in France, or they just don't feel they need to?
Well, we don't have the data sharing, did we, that we did when we were within the EU. And, of course, that is massively important for security.
We could share it if we wanted to.
We would dearly love to have that, but all we will have to go on, is our own information. So those people will then have 3 months. They'll come here, they won't be allowed to work, and then they can see if they can go through and be allowed to stay. But this was also initially billed as people will be allowed in if they have a family connection. That is not necessary. If you are coming from Afghanistan or Iran or somewhere else like that, you absolutely are eligible on this scheme. So, yeah, the government are saying it's a groundbreaking principle. Of course, it's got to be implemented in practice. I think a lot of people feel that...
But what's the point of all the big powers act between Starmer and Macron and all the money we're giving France if they won't even provide some rudimentary base saying, by the way, this bloke or this woman is a serial thief?
Yeah, and we're going to pay all the costs of this, both ways. The French or indeed us can suspend it at a week's notice. We have to tell the French when we're going to send somebody there within 14 days.
And do we tell them if they've got a criminal record?
Of arrival. Well, if they have a criminal record, the French won't take them because they can veto anybody
you can make this
on
up.
security grounds. If there's anybody that comes that we decide we don't want, France can say, no, we're not having them. And also, we've got to tell them within 14 days of the person arriving here. They may make claims, we assume, to try to get rid of it. And then the French have got 28 days to let us know whether they will take that person or not. If they don't respond, we have to keep them.
Catherine, thank you for that, Catherine Forbes. We can go now to Chris Philp, who is the Tory spokesman on... he's the Shadow Home Secretary, effectively, who I think is somewhere near the Channel. Chris, you're on the Channel. Chris Philp. I hope you're not too seasick there, Chris. Good morning.
Good morning, Andrew.
We've been going through this. It looks like within 24 hours already, Chris, this much-vaunted Labour Home Office crackdown on asylum seekers crossing the Channel, it's already unravelling.
It looks like it's unravelling. We said yesterday... Can you hear me? We said yesterday there would be no deterrent effect, and we can see the evidence of that right here. I'm on the Channel, and you can see behind me a French warship escorting an illegal migrant dinghy. We're just inside English waters now, UK waters, and a border force vessel, Typhoon, is about to pick up the illegal immigrants that have come across. It's the second boat we've seen this morning. So it's quite clear the government's announcement yesterday having no effect whatsoever, no deterrent effect, just as we said, and the French are continuing to escort these boats into UK waters.
Chris, we're being told as well that the French will not tell us if some of these people going back and forth, whether they have a criminal record or not. They're going to withhold the information.
That's right. Article 16 of the agreement says that the French will not provide any personal information at all about the people being sent in the other direction. The people, being sent into the UK. So they could have French criminal records, they could be terrorists. And even if the French government know that, they're not going to tell the UK government. Migrants being sent in the other direction, however, to France, the UK government will provide that information. So it's completely asymmetric. We're going to have no idea who these people are that the government are going to be shipping in to the UK. And you know what? It's not even helping us because, as you can see, unfolding behind me, I'm not sure if you can see, there's a migrant dinghy, there's a French warship, and Border Force Typhoon just over there is coming in to pick up the illegal immigrants. So just as we said, this new deal is having no deterrent effect because of the people on that dinghy over there, 94% under this new arrangement get to stay in the UK. And if 94% are going to stay in the UK, of course, they're going to try the crossing, which is exactly what they're doing right now.
Now, Chris, we're told this is one in, one out. How often will those numbers be reconciled? How often will the French decide how many to take back compared to how many we've given? Is this going to be added up annually, monthly?
Well, we simply don't know. The document is doesn't have that detail in it. It doesn't even say how many migrants are going to be covered. There's no number in there. So we actually don't know how many will be covered. We've heard it reported it'll be 50 a week, which amounts to 6% of the crossings. So 94% get to stay. But that's not in the agreement. We don't know that for sure. What we do know is that if migrants lodge a so-called suspensive claim, for example, a modern slavery claim, that means they won't get sent back to France. And if they've got a pending human rights claim, then they won't get sent back to France either. So a lot of loopholes here that will stop, even for the tiny numbers the government are talking about, there are loads of loopholes that will stop this deal working in practice.
How could a Tory government, Chris, stop this Royal Naval vessel escorting a dinghy of migrants across the Channel?
Well, so my view firstly is the French should be stopping these boats near French shores. We've seen this morning the French warship over there, you can see it over there, has escorted the migrant vessel into the shipping lane, which is in fact a massive container ship, just had to change course to avoid hitting it. They should have stopped it near the French coast, that would have saved life. The Belgians do that, the Australians have done it, it can be done. But what will stop this happening is if every single one of the illegal immigrants who crosses got removed, either to their country of origin or to a safe third country, then there'd be no point in attempting the crossings in the first place. Now, doing that would require us, at a minimum, to repeal the Human Rights Act in relation to immigration matters, which we would definitely do. And in fact, we've already tabled that in Parliament. It might also need us to come out of the ECHR, and Lord Wolfson is going to report on that in just a few weeks' time. So we would do whatever it takes to ensure that not 6%, but 100% of illegal arrivals get removed. And if the illegal immigrants in Europe know they're going to get removed 100%, they're not going to bother attempting these crossings in the first place. Where Hurricane's got to, it's just, I think, that red vessel is the lightship just on the border.
Chris, critics of your position will say that all these details were known several years ago. We knew that it was the potential for human rights claims on an individual basis that was preventing deportations, that would have scuppered the Rwanda Act, sadly. People will say, well, you knew this was going to happen when you were in office. Why didn't you deal with it then?
Well, we did pass the Safety of Rwanda Act, which
yes, but
took a while.
without that suspension of the Human Rights Act.
Well, it did actually, the Safety of Rwanda Act did actually disapply most of the Human Rights Act in relation to the Rwanda scheme. So I think it would have been effective, but we want to go even further now and repeal the entire Human Rights Act in relation to all immigration matters. So the French apparently are now trying to pick up the life jackets from the migrants. I was looking at the migrant dinghy now. Apparently the French are picking up the life jackets from the migrants, presumably so they can give them to some other illegal immigrants back in France. That's happening right in front of me now.
Astonishing.
It is astonishing. Chris, this is a pilot scheme, the government say. It lasts for 11 months. Do you think it's going to last a month?
Well, I mean, to be honest, we don't know much detail. It's got a sunset clause next June, which is before the next summer's season. But to be honest, it's not going to work because for two reasons. Firstly, there are loads of legal loopholes, which I've talked about already. And secondly, it's not going to have a deterrent effect because only 6% of migrants are going to get sent back to France. So the whole thing is not going to work. And the fact that today, the first day the deal is in force on the Channel, I've already in the last half an hour seen 2 boatloads of migrants crossing, shows already in real time today, as I'm standing here, that the government's plan is not working already.
All right, sorry.
So, Chris, supporters of asylum seekers would say that they're taking huge risks across the Channel. They must be very desperate, fleeing very difficult circumstances in order to make that crossing. What would be your response to that?
Sorry, say that again, Miriam, I didn't quite hear you.
Apologies, I don't think the line is the clearest. Supporters of asylum seekers would say that people making this crossing are taking their lives into their hands, they're taking enormous risks, they must be very desperate and fleeing a difficult situation in order to take that risk. What would you say to that?
Well, I mean, they're leaving France, right? These people on this boat just over there, a couple hundred metres away from me, this morning left France. They left the Gravelines beach, which is near Dunkirk. France is a safe country. There's no war happening in France. No one's getting persecuted in France. France has a well-functioning asylum system. Not a single person on that boat over there is fleeing war in France. Right, because the trip is completely unnecessary. They were in a safe country already. They probably travelled through Belgium, probably Germany as well, on their way to France. So this trip is totally unnecessary from a humanitarian point of view. Totally unnecessary. They're in a safe country already, France.
Chris Philp. Shadow Home Secretary.
In the middle of the English Channel.
Yeah, Britain's News Channel live from the English Channel.
Great to talk to you, Chris, but how embarrassing for the government. I mean, that's quite clever by the Tories, because normally that's the sort of thing Reform do, to get a boat on the channel to see... What is it? He's already spotted 2 boats already.
Yeah, incredible. But
and the Royal Navy helping out.
Yeah.
The Royal Navy, which acts increasingly as an Uber service for migrants to cross the Channel.
But he's absolutely right. What kind of deterrent is it? There's a tiny, tiny chance that you'll be deported back to France, where you can try again.
Yeah.
It's not very high risk, is it?
No. Less than 6% are going to be deported. And it seems not even that many, because as Catherine was pointing out, there's all the loopholes. They're going to tie it up in knots.
And also, how are they going to exchange these people? I've got visions of, like in a James Bond movie, where they have a prisoner swap.
Yes, yes.
At arm's length. Anyway, we'll see.
Well, this is what the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, said yesterday. We will provide regular updates. People will be able to see how many people are being detained, how many people are being returned, and it is right that we should be transparent about that.
Well, we'll be live again from the Channel at midday with our Home and Security editor, Mark White, who's also on a boat.
Exactly. But still ahead, the former US President Bill Clinton and his wife have both been subpoenaed as part of that investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's criminal network. That man's fingerprints are everywhere.
Yes, well, up next, we'll also be going through the papers with Mike Parry and Stephen Pound. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as
and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
With the village. Welcome back. It's 26 minutes past 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom. We are live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
They're back, the boys, Mike Parry and Stephen Pound. I'm fascinated by... Donald Trump clearly thought this whole Epstein thing had gone away, Stephen.
Yes.
But now it's back with a vengeance. But my God,
yeah,
it's the Clintons.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
In the run-up to the outpouring of information about the Epstein situation, some of what you might call the regular suspects were involved. And Clinton, of course, was. I mean, you know, let's be fair to Bill Clinton. Nothing has ever been held against him. But the amount of information involving Bill Clinton and women dogged both his presidencies.
Yeah, it did.
I went down to Arkansas, right, before Bill Clinton got voted president, and found he had a special unit of people who were there simply to ward off the claims from women who were saying they'd had an involvement with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, for instance, when he was governor of Arkansas, would tell Hillary, his wife, he was going out jogging every morning, right? And used to take a member of the National Guard with him as a bodyguard. In fact, he only jogged around the corner and the National Guard man stood outside the house while he went inside and conducted an affair with a lady called Jennifer Flowers.
I remember
who was a very attractive...
Yeah, but I mean, I think you say... I mean, he made this joke, didn't he? He said, I come from Hot Springs, Arkansas. You know, they named it after my bed. Ha, ha, ha. You know, he's quite blatant with it. But, I mean, the Monica Lewinsky thing was actually found. But what's fascinating about Epstein is Woody Allen wrote a letter to Jeffrey Epstein thanking him for this marvellous dinner that he had. And he said when he went round there, he saw these photographs of Jeffrey Epstein with Fidel Castro, Pope John Paul II.
Yes.
I mean, it just... You know, anybody who turned up...
His tentacles were enormous, weren't they? They got everywhere. And there's always been the suggestion that if people were engaged in sexual activity in his house, that everything was filmed, and then he had...
Woody Allen said it. He said that Epstein's house in Manhattan was like Dracula's castle, and with female vampires.
Well, it was the biggest private house in Manhattan, and it had about 7 floors or something like that. You're absolutely right. But the other thing about Epstein is, and it still hasn't been solved...
7 floors in Manhattan?
Yeah, that's right,
A house?
Well,
he was a serious billionaire, wasn't he?
It was.
Where did he get his money from?
I was about to say, nobody's worked out where Epstein got his money. It is believed, one theory is, that what he did was he looked after vast amounts of black market money, which he was given to look after and took a percentage of and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, you're absolutely right, there's a lot of people who didn't want the world to know their lifestyle that Jeffrey Epstein did know about, and for that reason he was so safe.
And his death was very
suspicious.
Very suspicious.
Well, there's still a lot of people say... I think the cameras happened to be switched off and the guard was asleep.
That's right.
It's having a massive impact on US domestic politics, though, this story, isn't it?
Yes,
because
it is.
Before Trump was elected, all his supporters expected him to come in and release all the files.
That's right.
Of course, that hasn't happened, which has led to the suspicion that Trump's hiding something, and
it's the only thing which is actually impacting negatively on the MAGA base. You know, his base. The only everything else, he's been Teflon.
And of course, Trump is suing the Murdoch press in America for alleging that he sent a lewd drawing to Epstein.
Well, that's a $10 billion case. And
$10 billion?
$10 billion case, And I spoke to somebody about this a couple of days ago. There is now an awful lot of work going on behind the scenes because neither side really wants this to get out in public. But the President Trump, felt that if he didn't strike out immediately at the suggestion that he'd somehow sent this fruity letter, with an erotic drawing and words, that if he didn't strike out and say no, that it would hang over him.
Mike, you've edited newspapers. If you were editing the Wall Street Journal today and you'd got that document, would you not actually print it and show it? What's stopping them?
You've got to assume they've got it, otherwise they'd never have gone into it. You know that both the CEO of the Wall Street Journal, which is owned by the Dow Jones Index, and the editor of the Wall Street Journal are English. The editor is a lady, Emma, I can't remember her surname.
Emma Tucker.
Emma Tucker, thank you. And,
how did you know?
And because she used to be editor of the Sunday Times.
I don't know how Andrew knew that.
She'd be editor of the Sunday Times here.
What's her phone number?
And of course the CEO is, and we both know him because he was CEO of The Sun in this country.
Will Lewis.
No,
not Will Lewis.
No, not Will. Robert somebody.
Yeah, Robert Thompson.
Robert Thompson.
My former editor.
And, exactly, and he's English as well. So there's a big English...
Can we just talk about ourselves?
Lost here.
But on the Clintons, they've got to talk to the investigator.
Yes.
But Mrs. Clinton too?
Well, the thing is, Hillary was so involved in Bill Clinton's life.
Yes.
And most people think that she was the stronger of the two throughout the 8 years. For instance, she was the First Lady ever to say, my office will be in the West Wing, not the East Wing, and it will be next to the President's. And there was an adjoining door between their offices. So a lot of people think that she was, had a very, very big part in running America during those 8 years. And therefore, she would also be in charge of information that had happened in Bill's relationship with Epstein.
But he almost, I mean, she was, to a certain extent, she was complicit, because remember she said, he's a hard dog to keep on the porch.
Yeah.
And I think we all know what she meant by that. So, to a certain, I'm not saying she was supportive, but I think she was, if not complicit, I think she was forgiving.
She was hugely influential. The famous joke is that they stopped at a gas filling station and Bill said to Hillary, I bet you're glad you married me and not the guy who pumps the gas. And Hillary said, Bill, if I'd have married the guy who's pumping the gas, he'd be the President of the United States. And that's how influential she was.
We've got time for one more story, Jeff?
Yeah, we certainly have. I mean, this amount of money now, HMRC wants to tax private school deposits. Now, this is a brilliant story because the people who make commerce run, who make this country great and has been great, are those who have vision. And a lot of parents who've got children at private schools had the vision to pay in advance school fees for up to 5 years before Rachel Reeves, the nasty Rachel Reeves, came in and decided to punish parents for being ambitious for their children. So they pay these in advance, right, think that's it, we've eaten it. No, the pernicious and nasty and vicious Labour government have said, oh, you think you've been clever, do you? We're coming after the money you paid in advance. And I think that's an absolute disgrace.
Well, this is nothing to do with the Labour government. It's HMRC.
Oh, really? Really? Funny enough, the Labour governments are in power.
No, hang on a second. You're talking about tax law there. But look, here's the interesting thing. I think what at the moment is that between 5 and 9% of the people in this country go to commercial schools, private schools. And it's always been a commercial operation. People actually go out for the money. So, honestly, why should we be giving them a tax break or no VAT when every other commercial organisation in the country has to pay VAT?
Yeah, so we close down schools, do we?
No, of course we don't close down.
Oh, really? Sorry, what does that say there?
A few private schools have closed.
No, 54.
Hang on a second, which were closing beforehand. Look at that.
No, excuse me. Alan was absolutely right. 54 independent schools shut doors.
Right, I'm going to jump in,
and that's only in August.
Where do you
Our big breaking story today is about this migrant one-in, one-out deal and the fact that it could already be scuppered. We've had Chris Philp live from the English Channel showing us live on air that migrant boats are still coming and saying that the government's new policy will have no impact. What do you think to the Shadow Home Secretary's statement?
If we send 59 people back, that's 49 more than the Conservatives sent back to Rwanda. But look, this is a preliminary move in an idea. It's a simple idea. Everybody says, stop the boats, do something about it. But nobody yet has come up with a single coherent, cohesive plan. Everybody's done a lot of talk. This is a plan. We've actually had talking to France. However, I think there are loopholes, without a shadow of a doubt. How we identify... Well,
this is a load of nonsense.
Look, would you do something or would you do nothing?
I would do something like
what
Greece.
What would you do?
Greece have closed their borders. Greece have said, we're not having any more in. America have closed their borders. Why don't we just close our border? Why don't we close our border?
How do you close a sea?
Well, you're a former Navy man. You must surely have considered the option of sending a Navy ship
to actually do a boom across the channel.
Well, we should take a ship from somewhere and put them in the channel and say, look, I'm sorry, you go no further. They're just pouring in every day.
It's the biggest shipping lane in the world. We can't have a boom across the British-English channel.
Stephen, you know that this is just another nonsensical slogan. Smash the gangs, that's a slogan from an advertising agency.
Stop the boats.
Oh, no. One in, one out. What a load of nonsense. One in, one out. Even if that worked, the one coming in would bring 6 members of their family. And then the one going out, the French would say, no, he's not a very nice person. We don't want him back. I mean,
one of the benefits of what they're doing in Germany, what Merz is doing in Germany, and I have to say there's been about a 30% decline.
60%.
Is it up to 60%?
60% now.
They're great because that actually then slows the whole process down because people can't come through Germany, they can't come through France. So hopefully there'll be some good news. But look, the one in, one out. Everybody said that people who have a legitimate right to be in this country should be here paying tax and getting properly integrated. So this idea is we send somebody back who's got no right to be here and we take somebody who has got a right. But, what's not to
Stephen, once again, Patrick Christis of this very station...
He was well ahead of Chris Philp, I tell you that.
I was about to say, Chris Philp has twice identified gang members in Europe. And guess what? Even the BBC Even the BBC last night,
I saw
their
that.
news programme,
I saw that.
on a year-long investigation, and they eventually found a gang member at the Bullring in Birmingham.
Yeah.
So if they can do it,
Why can't
Smash the Gangs effect do it?
I have to say, as soon as Robert Jenrick saw Chris Philp, I hate to think what Robert Jenrick... He'll be on a surfboard next.
Gentlemen, on that note, that's Mike Parry and Stephen Pound. Coming up, well, actually, we go to our 60-second update, news update with Tatiana Sanchez. Tatiana.
Yes, Andrew, thank you very much. The top stories. Illegal migrants crossing the Channel may be able to use a human rights loophole to avoid deportation, but Dame Angela Eagle has rejected opposition's suggestions that that's the case. The Charity Commission has found no evidence of bullying or harassment at a charity set up by Prince Harry, but it has found that an internal dispute at Centre Barley severely impacted the charity's reputation. Rachel Reeves has been warned she'll have to break her promise and raise taxes in the autumn to plug a £50 billion black hole. Former US President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary Clinton have been subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee in connection with the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation. Artificial intelligence tools will be rolled out to all police forces to tackle grooming gangs. And those are the latest headlines. For now, more news in half an hour.
For the very latest, GB News direct to your smartphone. Sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Well, coming up next at 12 o'clock, we've got Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Emily. Good morning, both of you.
Good morning. Do you remember when there was a big black hole in the government finances?
Yes.
Has it ever
And
gone away?
when Rachel Reeves had to raise taxes by £40 billion to plug that black hole. Well, now apparently there's a £50 billion black hole in the public finances.
Yeah,
it hasn't gone well, has it?
Yeah, what's happened? And now we're being told that we're going to have massive tax rises as a result, as if this couldn't have been foreseen. And yet we continue to have spending pledges from the government on everything, every single day. More money to the French, more money for youth clubs, more money for free breakfasts, more money for XYZ. And we have this massive black hole. So that's something that we're going to be discussing today.
I remember when I was in Parliament, there was a lot of discussion behind the scenes amongst Conservatives about why the government keeps boasting about how much money it's spending. We've spent 60 billion. I mean, COVID was part of the problem.
Yeah.
But it has created this culture where governments want to show off about the money they're spending, forgetting that it's our money.
They don't want to say how many operations have been done,
No.
how many miles of motorway have been built, how much railway has been built. No, it's about how much money has been thrown at the problem. I mean, to some government ministers, spending 100 billion on not completing a railway would be better than spending 10 billion on finishing the blooming thing.
And we're also going to be talking, of course, about this one-in, one-out deal, which is unravelling before
Didn't take
our
long,
eyes.
did it?
It's quite incredible.
Yeah.
We have to tell the French everything about these individuals.
They will tell us nothing.
The one
Not
thing
even
we
a
need to
criminal
know-
record.
Normally the government, of course, do policy briefings with specialists behind the scenes for the journalists.
There's been none this
Nothing
time.
of that.
That's a giveaway, isn't it?
We're going to have to head to the break now, guys, but lots of that coming up midday. Looking forward to it. And we're also going to be speaking very shortly about the rise of anti-Semitic incidents in this country. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good morning. This is your latest Met Office weather update for GB News. For many, today is going to be a fine day, the exception just being across the far north of Scotland. Here there will be a front bringing a bit of cloud, a bit of drizzly rain at times as well, though a lot of that is going to clear through as we go towards lunchtime. Elsewhere, like I said, a fine picture for most, lots of fine sunny weather around, albeit a bit of cloud bubbling up at times, and some high-level cloud may make the sunshine a bit hazy, a bit milky as we go through into the afternoon. Temperatures are going to be a little bit higher than yesterday and feeling a bit warmer too, with more sunshine and lighter winds, highs of around 24-25 Celsius towards the south and just a few degrees lower than this further north. As we go through into this evening and actually across the south, apart from some thicker cloud perhaps across parts of the southwest, for many it's staying fine. There'll be some late glimmers of sunshine as well for most here. A slightly different story as we head towards the northwest. Winds picking up and a bit more cloud starting to push in across parts of Northern Ireland, and a few few outbreaks of rain for the west of Scotland too, and it is going to be turning a little bit cloudier because of a frontal system that's starting to make its way in. This is gradually going to push its way east and southeastwards as we go overnight, so things turning pretty wet across Northern Ireland, much of Scotland, and some rain just about fringing into parts of northwest England and across western Wales as we go through the early hours of tomorrow as well. Towards the southeast, staying dry with some clearer skies, temperatures here holding up in the mid-teens generally, and similar across northwestern parts, but obviously here is going to be a cloudy, wet start to the day tomorrow. That front continues its progress south and eastwards. It could be a bit heavy at times, particularly across higher ground of Wales and northwest England, and across the southeast really it's going to take until quite late on for the rain to arrive, and by the time it does, that front will have broken up so much it will just be a few spots of rain and a bit of cloud. Behind the front, something a little bit brighter, and for many, temperatures peaking in the high teens or low to mid-20s.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
A new report has uncovered that anti-Semitic incidents surged to an annual record after Bob Vylan's anti-Israeli chant. If you remember at the Glastonbury Festival this year, there was a huge row because the BBC did not take it off air.
Yeah, well, we're joined now by the Director of Policy at the Community Security Trust, Dave Rich, who produced the report. Good morning, Dave. Thank you for joining us. Can you outline the statistics, the headlines in your report for us?
We take reports of anti-Jewish hate incidents and hate crimes from people across the Jewish community and across the whole of the UK. And in the first 6 months of this year, we recorded more anti-Semitic incidents than in the first half of any other year, other than last year. It was the second highest total we've ever had. Last year was the highest, and of course that came soon after the appalling October 7th terror attack by Hamas in Israel at the end of 2023. And what we're seeing this year is still the legacy of the unprecedented and completely unacceptable increase in anti-Jewish hatred across the country since that date.
And in terms of the testimonies you've heard from Jewish people, how is this changing their experience of life in Britain?
We've had so many reports, hundreds of reports, of just ordinary Jewish people going about their lives and some random stranger shouts abuse or threats at them simply because they're Jewish. Perhaps they're wearing religious clothing, perhaps they're a Jewish school child in a school uniform. Now, the Jewish community has a very good life in this country. This has long been a really wonderful place for Jews to live. And to a large extent, this is still the case. The community is very strong and resilient, but it's definitely having an impact on people's confidence, on their sense of safety and security, and their sense of belonging.
And you're pretty clear, aren't you, that there was a perceptible spike in these incidents after that revolting rant on stage at Glastonbury by this alleged singer, Vylan?
So the day with the single highest daily incident count in the first 6 months of this year was the day after Bob Vylan went on stage at the Glastonbury Festival and led up the entire crowd in a chant of death to the IDF being the Israeli army, which of course was broadcast on the BBC. And most of these incidents the following day made reference to what had happened at Glastonbury, or were responding to people in the Jewish community and Jewish organisations complaining about it. And it was a perfect example, really, of how very extreme anti-Israel hatred doesn't just stay as anti-Israel, it spills over very easily into anti-Semitism and abuse directed at Jewish people and Jewish organisations.
Now, what do you recommend that the government should do about this? And indeed, not just the government, but community leaders, the police, all different people in authorities. Clearly, there is a role for legitimate criticism of the Israeli government. Nobody, and you don't deny that. But how do we educate people? How do we prosecute people? How do we turn this situation around?
I think you're absolutely right to suggest that this goes beyond government and police. We always want more prosecutions for hate crime. We want really strong police action against extremism, and we need that government support. And the government does provide £18 million a year to pay for commercial security guards at Jewish schools and synagogues and so on, which is very welcome. But really, this is a challenge for the whole of society. When you have this kind of extremism, this kind of hatred at places like Glastonbury, broadcast on the BBC, we've had reports of anti-Semitism from workplaces, from schools, even from hospitals. It's really appalling where it's happening now. So I think it's a challenge for everybody across society to understand what anti-Jewish hatred looks like and to speak up against it and act against it when it happens, and to reassure your Jewish friends and colleagues that this is not what Britain is about. Most people in this country, we know, find this kind of racism completely abhorrent. It doesn't represent the best of Britain, and it isn't what we want our country to be.
All right, Dave, that's Dave Rich from his Director of Policy at the Community Security Trust that has produced that report, which means there's a couple of hundred anti-Semitic incidents every week. It's just shocking, isn't it?
It is, and some of the incidences in the report, they're not just, shouting, chants, actual violence. Pretty horrific stuff.
It's really appalling. Now, just a tease here, would you eat a sausage roll drenched in gravy? Miriam says she would, but I don't know that I believe that. Stay tuned for the culinary crossover of the century. Not much.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. Britain's News Channel. Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News. You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
That's the promise.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, it's a gimmick, of course, but it's quite a clever one. Two high street giants have teamed up to create what they call is the culinary crossover of the century. Exaggeration.
Well, for the first time, you'll be able to have Greggs sausage rolls with KFC gravy. Well, there you go. It goes on sale next Friday.
Joining us now is broadcast and host of a podcast called Prick with a Fork podcast, Duncan Barks, who is about to try this extraordinary culinary creation. Duncan, morning. Rather you than me.
Both. Well, you say that, but honestly, I've been trialing this out this morning, Andrew, and this is the food of gods, right? This is the ultimate UK-US special relationship. KFC and Greggs. Of course, Greggs, a great British company. You have this lovely KFC chicken-flavoured gravy there, you can see, and of course you have the marvellous staple of the workforce of the UK, the Greggs sausage roll. They sell 1 million sausage rolls every day. And my podcast, Prick with a Fork, which you can find everywhere, celebrates everything to do with sausage rolls and sausages and sausage making. So should we give this a try? This is the gravy. So what I'm going to do is put the gravy all over, some lovely and thick as well, all over the sausage roll. Excuse me, that's disgusting, but you can't miss any of it. And there you can see the gravy in the sausage roll. You don't like the look of that?
No.
Put me off my lunch.
No, this is fantastic. You need to try this. So, I think the best way of doing this is, as you can see, is you just you pour it over the sausage roll, and then what you do is you cover the end of the sausage roll. And I'm really sorry to GB News viewers and listeners, but there might be a bit of chomping going on here.
Ed Miliband, eat your heart out.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm not yet a failed politician. That is the food of champions. What you get, oh my word, that is so good. You get the sausage roll, which I mean is a staple, as I say, and then you get the lovely chickeny flavour coming through. I mean, this is the ultimate comfort food. You know, we talk about bangers and mash, right, on a winter's evening, where it's really cold outside, you have sausages and mash. This is a mobile version of comfort food. If you're on the move, get your Greggs sausage rolls, get your KFC gravy. The job is a good one.
Right, Duncan. Well, we'll take your word for it. Marks out of 10.
Oh, definitely an 8. Maybe a 9. Yeah.
Maybe a 9. And what would it cost?
Well, I don't know off the top of my head. They're doing some tours starting tomorrow. So it's London, Manchester and Newcastle. And I think it's 6 sausage rolls and a big tub of gravy for about a tenner. That's what I've read. But as you rightly say, it's available in various stockists as of next week. Well, but this is the food of champions. Everyone should try this.
Duncan, enjoy. Rather you than us. That's it from Britain's Newsroom. Up next, Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Emily. We'll see you tomorrow.
When is a £22 billion black hole not a £22 billion black hole? When it has magically become a £50 billion black hole despite £40 billion in tax rises. Are you keeping up? I'm not sure the Chancellor is.
Yeah, well, she's got to cut public spending, doesn't she? Or hike those taxes higher and higher and higher. Brilliant stuff for us all, but also this one-in, one-out scheme, whatever you want to call it, with France. Well, it's unravelling before our eyes. We'll reveal why on Good Afternoon Britain and why the French seem to be winning again.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. For many, as we go through the rest of today, it's looking largely fine. There'll be some decent, warm, sunny breaks around, but there is some wet weather that's going to push in later on. That's because there's a frontal system currently out in the Atlantic, but that's going to make its way gradually southeastwards as we go through the next 24 hours. For the time being, though, like I said, it's a fine picture for the majority of us. Some decent sunshine on offer, perhaps the cloud bubbling up a little bit as we go into the afternoon, and there may be some high-level cloud around, so the sunshine may turn a little milky, but it's going to stay dry for the vast majority of us. And with the sunshine, temperatures a little bit higher than yesterday, and feeling it with the lighter winds, temperatures peaking around 25 Celsius towards the south. As we go towards the evening, we are going to see the winds starting to pick up a little bit, and a little bit more cloud pushing across western parts of Scotland and across parts of Northern Ireland. Perhaps a few outbreaks of rain by around 5 or 6 o'clock. Further east and south, though, clinging on to that fine weather well into the evening. So some glimmers of sunshine to look forward to as we go through the end of the day. Yes, the cloud may be a bit thicker in some places, but on the whole, it's staying fine for a little while yet. Overnight, however, that weather system does make its way in, so wet weather pushing across parts of Northern Ireland, much of Scotland, and some of that rain feeding into parts of northern and western Wales and western and northern England as well as we go through the early hours of tomorrow morning. Towards the southeast, staying dry with some clear skies, a bit of a fresh night for some, but still temperatures generally holding up in the mid-teens Celsius. Then through tomorrow, that front continues its way southeastwards. It will bring some heavy bursts of rain across some high ground towards the west, but it breaks up and fizzles out as it moves through. So towards the southeast, not really seeing any of the rain associated with that. And behind the front, we are going to see a scattering of showers pushing their way in. Temperatures may be down a degree or so compared to today, but feeling warm in any sunny breaks.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather.